I have to record, and I record truth. And I'm sitting here greeting my grandchildren because I haven't seen them in a little bit since my birthday. And, I reside here. And my daughter-in-law will dump these kids off with total strangers. But she doesn't want me spending time with them. She's a total bitch. My son married a bitch. He did. Aubrey Schneider is a bitch. And that's the truth. She is. And I have to tolerate her because she is married to my son. She's married to my son. And she likes this control mechanism, act like she's got authority and control, using the kids as a freaking ass pawn, like a ping pong. Oh, don't talk to the kids. Why? Because little Bella was telling me that she was on the Jeep, in the back of the Jeep, sitting on the top of the back of the Jeep, and her sister drove off and she fell back and smacked her head. And it still hurts now. And she was telling me this, that she was hurt. And then the mother comes downstairs and says, oh, don't talk to the kids. Well, they don't want me talking to the kids because they don't want the kids revealing that they're getting physically injured. And which they tell me when they see me. And, I think it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. They're placing these kids under abuse a lot of times. And they don't want them around me because they don't want the kids telling me the truth that they're getting abused or injured. And today is my son's birthday. And her mentality is, don't talk to the kids. Don't talk to the kids because they speak the truth. Kids speak the truth. And Aubrey Schneider is a total bitch. She is. And that's the God's honest truth. As I am a Christian woman saying it. She's a total bitch. And she's married to Brandon. And I think this marriage was prearranged prior to the meeting. So that they would have full control over the relationship between me and the grandchildren. I think it was prearranged. And, I tolerate it. I don't have much of, well, I do have a choice. But I'm going to be very honest. Any individual that just is so chalant about their children's well-being, because she is abusive to those kids too. She does abuse those kids. She abuses my grandchildren. Aubrey Schneider Blankenship abuses my grandchildren. And they keep them away from me because they don't want them disclosed that these kids are being abused. And I already reported them to the Child Protective Services. And I haven't heard them screaming the last few days. But I don't like the fact that they play total control games with my grandchildren. I'm a grandmother, and I'm very protective over my grandchildren. And for her to get upset because I'm greeting them and they start talking truth like they got injured, it's a problem for them, not me. So I'm recording this. I am going to record it. I would never, ever be in a position to call someone a bitch unless they're not a bitch. And she's a bitch. She's a total bitch. And I'm a Christian. And I don't think I've ever called anyone a bitch before, my whole life. Well, Karen Taylor. I called her a bitch. But I've never ever called anybody else a bitch. In my whole life, and I'm 56 years old. It takes a lot for me to actually call someone a bitch. It does. It takes a lot. And, in terms of somebody that I know on a personal level. And I think that using the grandkids, if they're being told to stay away from me because they're smacking them around to schedule airplanes, And they don't want me to have a control mechanism of these kids developing a positive form of relationship with me. And what they do is, it's like, and I'm going to say this just based on my time here. It is like an environment that nurtures abuses, semi-nurtures abuses, semi-nurtures abuses, and these kids get to a position where they don't know whether they're going to be injured or whether they're going to be loved. And she's crying right now, Bella is. Listen to this. And a plane is flying. And they play emotional games with these children. It's like a pawn, something positive. Come and eat ice cream. And look at her, she's crying. They play emotional games with these children. And I can't stand that. You have an environment where you love and nurture the kids. And when they're acting up, you put them in timeout and you establish an environment where they understand the difference between right and wrong and true love, and you discipline without breaking the spirit of a child. You don't break their spirit, because God will hold individuals accountable if they break the spirit of a child. And that's what they do to these kids. They don't know whether they're going to be smacked or, something positive smacked, to where they start to withdraw. And little Bella was starting to withdraw. And I have concerns about that. I do have concerns about what is going on with these kids. And it's an emotional control. Like they tried to control my emotions. And they don't control my emotions in terms of hurting me. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the well-being of these grandkids. And, when adults play games with their children and smack them around and then claim like, oh, oops, these kids are smart. They're getting 4 and 5 years old. They're going to be 5 and 6 years old. And she doesn't talk to her mother that way, and which tells me that she was raised horribly. She was raised in an ungodly environment, in a disrespectful environment, an environment that didn't teach her how to have any sense of responsibility to her own kids in terms of their well-being. She was not. And I hate to say it, she's a total bitch. And she plays nice in front of people. Well, she doesn't know how to balance it, because she doesn't want to show her true bitchness, but yet tries to act all friendly around the neighbors. But she's a real bitch. In truth. That is the truth. It's just amazing to me. And I stand amazed on how my son got hooked up with her. I just stand amazed, because she fooled him. And he's married to her now, and they're getting ready to have their 4th child. They can't even love the 3 they have, and they're going to have another one. I can't comprehend it. You don't play emotional games with children. You do not. And them to try to say, it's my son's birthday. It is his birthday. And if they leave the children with a sitter, I don't like hearing my grandchildren hurt. I do not. I made it very clear. And Aubrey loves control. And I could give a shit if I see my son on his birthday. I could give a shit. He's a grown man. I don't have to prove my love to him. I love him. He doesn't need proof that he's loved by me. And I don't need proof that I need to have that support mechanism in my life to say, oh, I need to see him. It's his birthday. I don't give a shit. I don't. And that's the God's honest truth. I sent him a happy birthday note this morning, and I said, if you're going to leave with the babysitters, make sure you talk to them that those kids aren't screaming and crying. Hurt. He didn't like that. He'd much rather hear him screaming and crying and hurt. But I did wish him a happy birthday. And so, it just gets ridiculous how people try to play emotional pool games. Oh, we don't want to, we got our reasons why we don't want you talking to the grandkids, because they're going to disclose that they're being hurt. They don't have to disclose it to me. I hear them screaming all the time. That's enough disclosure. But with that said, they tried to make her mother seem like never worked a day in her life. No disrespect to Lindy. But I don't have respect for her because I don't respect her daughter. I think she did a very shitty job in raising Aubrey Schneider. That child is a mess. Aubrey Schneider is a mess. She is a mess. And when you raise individuals and they show no respect to adults, and they show no sense of, and they like the control mechanism, using their children as pawns, and then they themselves are emotionally unstable and they try to indicate a stability when they're unstable and are very unstable around the children and abusive to the children, both emotionally and physically, then there's a problem with that. There is a problem. And, I think she needs to go to counseling. And she likes this control. And what I find amazing is, it's not a matter of control. It's a matter of I guess she enjoys the control mechanism of it. She does. And, I stand amazed. It is my son's birthday today. And, I love my grandchildren, but they love using them as a pulley. Emotional. And like I told her before, I've raised my son. I did. I loved him. I nurtured him. I spoiled him. I gave him everything he wanted. He played sports. I taught him how to ride a motorcycle. I never missed a practice. I never missed one of his games. I supported him. I was at the school all the time, ensuring for his well-being. If he was being harassed by kids, I was right there making sure kids weren't harassing him. I was a parent. I was a parent. And if babysitters were abusive, I'd make sure that